Get this. In a league where the average hitter sees a pitch moving at 95 miles per hour, Clayton Kershaw once held an entire lineup captive, forcing them to swing at what looked like a slow-motion frisbee spinning into the dirt, all while knowing, deep down, they couldn't touch it. It felt less like a baseball game and more like a public interrogation, where Kershaw already knew the answers, and they could only fail. The climax of his career isn't just one moment. It's the 15 years psychological warfare he waged from the mound, defining an era not by offense, but by singular, unhittable dominance. We've seen power pitchers, we've seen finesse artists, but Kershaw, even in an era of unprecedented offensive metrics, managed to be the immovable object. His ERA stayed stubbornly low, year after suffocating year, a statistical middle finger to the universal rule that says great pitching is only temporary. This wasn't just execution. It was surgical precision deployed with cold, statistical ruthlessness that stripped the joy out of hitting for a generation of professional athletes. When Kershaw steps onto that rubber, the entire geometry of the game shifts, condensing the vastness of a diamond into a claustrophobic 60 feet, 6 inches of impending doom. His signature curveball, affectionately nicknamed the hook, descends with the rotational violence of a small moon, dropping 14 inches vertically and traveling horizontally across the plate in a way that defies conventional physics, leaving batters waving at air 90% of the time they swing. But what truly separated Kershaw wasn't raw speed or exotic movement. It was the pure weaponized control that gave him the audacity to throw his deadliest pitch in any count, against any hitter, eliminating the safety blanket of a predictable sequence. Nobody who saw his flawless 2014 MVP season will ever forget watching the league's most feared power hitters look utterly foolish, swinging late at a fastball clocked at a deceivingly average speed because they had just been mentally scrambled by the memory of a backdoor slider. Yet, the real myth of Kershaw lies not just in the strikeouts, but in the near-mythical defensive excellence that backed him up, resulting in his 3 Cy Young awards being won during seasons where he rarely benefited from exceptional run support, demanding perfection on every single pitch. His commitment transcended talent. It was a religious adherence to the process, a monastic focus that saw him emerge from the dugout, cocooned in layers of concentration, treating every start like the 7th game of the World Series. He was the anchor in a whirlwind, a constant against the league's inevitable tides of change, which is why he maintained a sub 3.00 ERA for over a decade in a league designed to prevent that exact outcome. Let's peel back the layers on this statistical titan. For all the talk of his breaking balls, his fastball velocity often sat comfortably below the league average for an ace. Yet he utilized this perceived weakness as a grand illusion, manipulating timing and eye level with microscopic adjustments that turned ordinary heat into extraordinary deception. Kershaw became the fastest pitcher in history to reach 2,000 strikeouts by age 30, not through sheer velocity, but by mastering the subtle art of location and the psychological quicksand of the high slider, a pitch he added to his arsenal later in his career to combat changing league metrics. Another staggering fact, during the peak of the offensive steroid era fallout, Kershaw became the first pitcher in the live ball era to post an ERA under 1.80 over a full season on his way to his first MVP award, a virtually impossible accomplishment in modern baseball. And here is one more detail that speaks volumes about his psychological makeup. Throughout his entire career, Kershaw utilized a meticulous pre-pitch routine so precise that it became a running joke among commentators. The habit, which included adjusting his cap, touching his belt, and pulling his jersey, was proven to synchronize with an almost non-existent rate of pitching violations. This machine of precision, this symbol of untouchable focus, brings us to the shocking reality that sits beneath the surface of the legend. We view dominance through longevity, consistency, and hardware, and Kershaw has all of it, including multiple no-hit bids and historic streaks of scoreless innings. But ask any fan, and they will point to a single, deep, festering scar, a handful of catastrophic high-leverage playoff performances that seemingly contrast his regular season immortality, creating a bizarre Jekyll and Hyde narrative. How can a man whose regular season performance is statistical granite suddenly look human when the lights are brightest? This inconsistency isn't merely a footnote. It challenges the very definition of a legend. If excellence requires peak performance regardless of circumstance, does temporary, high-stakes failure nullify a decade of unparalleled excellence? This is the gnawing uncertainty that plagues the appraisal of his legacy, turning adoration into complicated debate. It forces us to ask, is the greatest regular season pitcher of a generation truly a legend if his playoff narrative is peppered with doubt? Forget the awards, the strikeouts, and the microscopic ERA. The most impressive stat about Clayton Kershaw might be that despite pitching his entire career in the analytical, modern era where every weakness is exposed, the league still hasn't figured out how to hit his fastball consistently, a pitch most pitchers consider obsolete. His true legacy is the sheer psychological weight he exerted, turning 60 feet, 6 inches into the loneliest place on earth for anyone standing in the batter's box. But let's be honest. The reason his legend is so polarizing is because nobody can reconcile the impenetrable regular season god with the occasional, vulnerable October human. The truly terrifying thought is that he might not be done proving us all wrong.